If you are an eccentric, that means that you are someone who spends significant time studying pronunciation for American English, and I want to help you out. The best way to do this is by looking at the speech of native speakers so we can see what they're doing in their speech, and then we can start applying it to how we talk as well. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff. This is another episode of Say It Native. We're going to be looking at 5 examples from the speech of native speakers to find techniques that you can immediately start applying to your own speech. Let's take a look at our first example here.
I was born in the age of Ronald Reagan.
We'll play it one more time. Take a guess at what I'm going to say about this file. What is she doing?
I was born in the age of Ronald Reagan.
It's important that when we use our names or when we say names in American English that we use the right stress. So when we say stress, we mean what is the place or where is the place where we're putting the highest pitch. When you're saying names, you want to make sure that the highest pitch goes on the last name. Listen to how she says Reagan.
I was born in the age of Ronald Reagan.
You hear Ronald Reagan. By having that pitch rise after old, Ronald Reagan, that indicates to your listener that is the
I
stress.
was born in the age of Ronald Reagan.
So it's important that when we say names in American English, that you put the highest pitch towards the end. It's going to be on the last name, whatever the stress is on your last name. Okay, so for instance, even for companies too, like for instance, Fluent American. Fluent American, fluent is the first part, American is the second one. So we're going to stress American. You can use it for your name, like John Smith. Okay, Halle Berry. Stress on Berry. So these are just quick things you can do to immediately start sounding natural. Make sure you're doing it to your own name when you are introducing yourself. All right, so that's just our first tip. If you're already doing that, let me know in the chat or in the comments. But let's take a look at our second tip here.
But not as much as my mom.
Play that one more time. See what I'm going to say about this file.
But not as much as my mom.
Not as much as my mom. So this is a very common reduction, like not as much as something else. But notice that she's not really saying it as not as much as. No, it's going much faster, right?
But not as much as my mom.
But not as much as. So what we see with the word as is that when you have these comparisons, like as, or not as, like not as much as, that as becomes just like not as, it's just a quick like Z sound almost. Not as much as, not as much as my mom, like not as much as my. The other thing that's happening too is the pitch. You can hear it, especially like much as my, like not as much as my mom. Much as my mom. So it says down, 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 and then going up, mom, in terms of the pitch pattern.
But not as much as my mom.
Okay, see if you are applying that to your own speech. Again, we're making a lot of notes about pitch. Pitch is super important in American English for getting a more natural sound. A quick exercise you can do to see are you using enough pitches in your speech is just say the word wow, but try to go really high and also try to go really low, like wow. Hear how high I'm going on the first part, wow, and then hear how low I'm going at the end. Ooh, wow. Most likely, if you're not used to using pitch, you're probably saying like, wow, which is very limited, right? I'm not going high enough. I'm not going low enough. So these are things that you really want to start expanding because in American English, pitch is not an option. It is crucial for being understood. Let's move on to our third strategy. See what you think about this one here.
She would freak out about that.
We'll play that again. What am I going to comment on?
She would freak out about that.
Isn't that how he says would? Like she would freak out. She would freak out.
She would freak out about that.
So when we have a lot of our modal verbs, auxiliary verbs, these are words that don't actually carry a lot of weight. Usually it's the verb that comes after them. That's the important part, right? You can hear how high he goes on freaking out.
She would freak out about that.
She would freak out. Freak out's a phrasal verb, so the stress is falling on out. But for that would, it's so weak. You could contract it. You could say she'd freak out. She'd freak out. But he's actually maintaining the would and keeping it super weak. So instead of saying she'd freak out or she would freak out, because that's too heavy, right? He's not saying she would freak out. You could just make a really weak would. It's like she would freak out. Would. It's very light. It's very low in pitch. And it's very fast. She would freak out. She would freak out. She would freak out.
She would freak out about that.
Listen to that one more time.
She would freak out about that.
So again, going very weak on what is going to help you so much in achieving a more natural sound. Guys, if you're finding this sort of information helpful, I do want to let you know that we have a group called Mission English where we do this sort of analysis. We listen to native speakers and we also listen to your pitch every single day of the week because you can join me in our group class. It's called Mission English. We meet at these times. Okay, so for instance, we had a class just a little while ago. We had one at 8 p.m. New York. You can see that on Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to meet at 1:30 p.m. for a conversation class. Then we're going to meet at 8 o'clock for a half hour. And then we're going to meet on Friday at 9:30 in the morning. And then again at 1:30 p.m. And you're going to see it's all these times, 1:30 p.m. on Monday, 1:30 p.m. again on Tuesday, 8 o'clock p.m. on Monday, 8 o'clock p.m. again on Wednesday. So all of these different time zones, we meet in a private Facebook group. I appear on screen, you join me on screen in a max of two or three other students, and we talk about your pronunciation, we talk about native speaker pronunciation, and we do exercises together and give you an opportunity for feedback. We've also added some writing classes. So if you're preparing for IELTS, I can let you know based on my experience when I was a speaking examiner and a writing examiner for IELTS. I can help you prepare essays, but also things like business emails, reports, essays, anything that you're working on with regards to writing. I would love to help you out in. And again, that's on Mission English. You can go to fluentamerican.com. The name is right there and take a look at the Mission English program. I do have two more things about American English techniques that you can start adding to your own speech. If you have a question about any of these, you can also leave them in the chat or in the comments or in the replay after. But let's take a look at this one here.
Now, granted, I won't be,
Play that one more time.
Now, granted, I won't be,
Important one for American English. One of the biggest differences between British English and American English is T sounds. In American English, when you have an N that is followed by a T, the T is going to disappear. You're not even going to pronounce it.
Now, granted, I won't be,
Here she's now granted I. Instead, now granted I. So huge difference there in terms of sound. You want to make sure that T's after N's are not pronounced. Hello to Leonard. Thanks for stopping by, man. Good to see you. You see this in words like center. You see this in words like interview. You see this in words like advantage. It's like an international center. It's not international center. Guess just a note on that. I have one last clip for you. This one is super, super fast. See if you can get an idea of what I'm going to say here.
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, that was super fast. So
You know what I mean?
know what I mean? You know what I mean? So there's just so many reductions. So this is just an example of that, for instance, why pitch is really important because, she's not saying, you know what I mean. She's not talking that slowly. She's linking everything together. The words are said really fast because they're not stressed because the stress isn't until mean. So all the words before mean, they're not stressed. So that means that they're going to go weaker and they're going to go faster and they're also going to be lower in pitch. So how do we make it understandable?
You know what I mean?
We need to make sure that we're using pitch. So we're going to have mean as the highest pitch. Everything before it is going to be taking steps down. You know what I mean? 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 Some other things that are happening too when you're linking what to I, it's going to use a fast D. So instead of what I, that's really clunky, right? It's hard to say what I, what I. No, so what American English is going to do is going to pronounce it more like what I, what I. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? Okay. And that's just, again, some quick things. We need to make sure we're using lower pitches. We need to make sure that reduced words are going to be said faster. We also need to make sure that those words are also going to be weaker. All right, guys. So again, those are 5 quick techniques that native speakers use in their speech that you can start applying to your own. If you're already using these things in your speech, that's great to hear. Let me know about which ones you're using the most frequently. And again, if you want to get some specific feedback for your own pronunciation, you want to know if you're using these things right. You want to know if the things you're doing in your speech sound natural in American English. Are you sounding like a native speaker? If that's your goal. Well, we have our program called Mission English, which again, you can find at fluentamerican.com. You and me and a max of 2 to 3 other students will be on screen and we will discuss pronunciation things together. We meet at different time zones. So that way there is one that works for the country you are in, most likely. My name is Jeff. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Hope you have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care.